With the latest loss of writers for the super secret Star Wars movie that was supposed to feature Rey and redeem the sequel trilogy, this just 2 weeks before Star Wars Celebration, and following up on major shakeups over at Marvel where even Victoria Alonso is out, it's hard to say that Lucasfilm is in a steady position. In fact, this may finally be the time where we see a new direction. Explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve. It's what we do each and every day here on the WDW Pro channel. And likewise, X-Wing, fantastic YouTuber commentator of all things Star Wars, is joining us to help us with that endeavor today. Given that the topic is about Star Wars, and given that Star Wars is truly feeling very abandoned now, collapsing, if you will. We've been calling this for years. So many of you out there have said over and over and over, Star Wars has been dead. It is dead. It will be dead until they get away from the sequel trilogy, until they fix what they did to our heroes that we loved and were beloved, and that they broke irreparably. We want that resolved. And it seems now that we have reached sort of that bottom. I don't know how much lower Star Wars can go. We're going to talk about all of that. We're going to talk about the fact that the Star Wars celebration now seems like it has nothing to celebrate, because the last remaining theatrical option for Lucasfilm now seems all but dried up. We'll discuss it all in just a moment. Before we do, if you like content like this, you might consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and that notification bell. It's fun to click it and stick it to the algorithms. Don't forget, we covet your comments, so drop one down below. And the Pro Show starts tomorrow. That's Thursday, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and every Thursday thereafter. You're not going to want to miss it, just like you're not going to want to miss this discussion right now. X-Wing, has Star Wars ever been in a more precarious spot? Was there ever a time, even in sort of the dead times after Return of the Jedi, when Star Wars kind of went absent? Has there ever been a time that things looked this bleak?
So it's tough, because some would say yes, some would say no, right? There's a little bit of perspective. Some would say that under George's control, after the prequels, people were feeling this way. I would tend to disagree heartily, because I liked the prequels myself. But this is unprecedented, because now we have a truly disenfranchised franchise, which is something we've never really come across before. We have a lot of people saying that they feel like kind of the heart and soul of Star Wars is gone. But
that's a good point.
There's the added issue of now we're seeing front and center what's going on behind the scenes, and seeing the issues that are going on behind the scenes as well. So, you've got a company at this point, a studio, I should say, at Lucasfilm, where you have a head of the studio that has, at least by our eyes, been completely unable to control or corral everything going on, and talent is leaving left, right, upside down, and sideways.
Well, let's just walk through 3 of those things that you're talking about, okay? 3 things that are going on with Star Wars right now that are out in the public sphere that are bad. I mean, they're just bad, okay? Thing number 1, just what we said before, the last theatrical option for Star Wars on the horizon, okay? We're not talking about 10 years from now. Sure, there could be a Star Wars movie 10 years or 15 years from now, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about something that could be made anytime soon.
Right.
That appears to be escaping from Lucasfilm's hands. Then on the number 2 here, you've got the collapse of the Mandalorian ratings. We're finding that out. We had a comparison of Samba TV to other series within Samba TV's ratings. We don't really care for Samba TV here on this channel. We want to explain why, and we still like all the people who work there, even if we don't like the results. But the Nielsen ratings are coming. The Nielsen ratings are coming. The Nielsen ratings are coming. And just like Paul Revere, I'm saying that could be a bad sign for Disney. And then finally, number 3 that's happening as we speak is that the acolyte of all things, of all the crazy things that could possibly actually make it through and go into production, it had to be the thing being directed by the personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein, which is also facing a lawsuit where they may have treated somebody unethically and potentially in a litigious way. Lucasfilm is in a mess,
fiction, right? It's almost like it couldn't be coincidental.
Well, it's more interesting than the stuff they put out for Star Wars. How's that?
Yeah. Some interesting points to touch on there. Yeah. And you know, like you were saying, at this point, we've lost so many projects. I think, and I could be mistaken, I think the number is 8 at this point. 8 projects that have been brought out and shelved for various reasons. It's been a very interesting time to be a Star Wars fan.
They operate differently than any other studio I have ever seen. And perhaps it's because they're sustained by Disney and nobody wants to touch Kathleen Kennedy. Maybe that's why. Maybe because in any normal circumstance, this sort of erratic, borderline unethical behavior, and perhaps not borderline, but that would usually result in a course correction as the studio floundered on its own. Disney has been able to hold this place sort of in a bubble where they have unlimited funds that just keep rushing in, despite the fact that they have feted away any success possible over and over and over. All right, let's dive into an article that we want to take a look at regarding just how bad things are getting for Star Wars. This says, this one is from AV Club. Another Star Wars thing is in trouble, just like all Star Wars things always are. This by Sam Bersanti. Writers Damon Lindelof and Justin Britt Gibson have dropped out of whatever they were working on. Okay. Sam, I like you. We're going to read more of Sam in the future. Here we go. Watch out, because every character in every Star Wars movie is rushing in to say that they've got a bad feeling about something, as first reported by Above the Line and later confirmed by Deadline. Writers Damon Lindelof and Justin Britt Gibson have dropped out of the mysterious Star Wars project they were working on. We heard about this movie back in October when Lucasfilm had assembled a crew of TV writers to tackle this, despite it being a movie, and we still don't have any details on what it is supposed to be about, other than Star Wars stuff. Droids, aliens, blasters, maybe lightsabers, maybe spaceships. Now let me pause here and say that what we had been told via our sources here on this channel, via That Park Place, via Valiant Renegade, we had been told that this was the Daisey Ridley, Rey sequel trilogy follow-up that was supposed to sort of redeem some of those characters and bring them back into the merchandising fold, help out with the stalling Star Wars properties in the theme parks, the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, which is really struggling right now, massively struggling. But the merchandising for Star Wars has fallen off too.
And so we do have some idea of where it's going. Financial choice, right? This is the safe financial choice because all that stuff's already there.
Well, yes, it's the safe financial choice in that they're trying to save the things that are existing. Exactly right. However, I would say that trying to bring Rey back seems to me to be like you just will not rip off the Band-Aid and admit defeat. I mean, does that not seem right to you that the sequel trilogy at this point is just irredeemable?
So this is and this behavior is repeated, I would say, not only in that, but also in the head of the studio as well. So they are staunchly holding the shield wall, right? That we are not going to change. This is going to work. This is going to work. This is going to work. And it seems like continually they just seem to avoid the writing on the wall and say, no, we're going to make this work. And
well, they don't respond to the market. They don't care what the market does.
I simply don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. And yeah, I would suppose there is a degree of having to save face here to some degree, maybe holding out for Indiana Jones 5, but Lord have mercy. There should have been a course correction at this point. And in any other studio, you would expect a course correction after as many gaffes that we've seen.
Well, X-Wing, think about this. We've done articles in the past where we literally had photos of this, where bookstores, which are beholden to give the end of the shelf space, the end cap space, to High Republic novels. Now, High Republic, for those of you who don't know, is the Star Wars latest attempt at young adult novels, which has been just terrible and mocked resoundingly. And so what these bookstores would do, because they were contractually bound to put this garbage on the end of their shelves, and I'm not saying garbage lightly. It's garbage. But they were required to put this stuff on the end of their shelves contractually. And so what they were doing, and again, photos from multiple stores, they were literally taking the High Republic Star Wars material, laying it on the ground in front of the shelf there, and filling the rest of the shelf up with Timothy Zahn novels from decades past about Star Wars because that would sell better than this new stuff where sentient rocks like you find in the ground, are having inappropriate conversations with young people. That's what's in those books. Now, X-Wing, think about this. If it's that bad that bookstores are resorting to laying the content on the floor, why in the world would you base The Acolyte, this multi-season, long-format show, on the High Republic? That's what I'm talking about when I say Lucasfilm ignores the market completely.
Yeah, so that's a little tough, and a lot of that is kind of speculation for me. I don't make fun of anything unless I've consumed the product. So that's like my number one rule. I can't go talk crud about something unless I've actually already watched it or read it. So I went and I read 2 of the books out of the High Republic. That's as far as I could make it. And the first one I read was the one with Geode, right? It was the Geode story and everything like that. And to be honest with you, that was the better of the 2 that I read.
Oh my gosh.
Which pains me to say. It pains me to say. That was the better of the 2 that I read. But when it comes to actually paying attention to what Star Wars fans want and what's going to sell, I have to tell you, WDW, I'm a collector. This is a quarter of what's going on in the room. It's a very small portion of it. And a lot of the time that I have spent in books because,
sure,
let's be honest here, that's where the majority of the content is actually in the books. And I've got my signed Timothy Zahn behind me, 2 X-Wing for Heir to the Empire. It is where Star Wars should have gone. Because if you're smart, you look at what has succeeded. And what has succeeded? Timothy Zahn, the book, The Heir to the Empire. And if you need any more indication of that to be true, look at what Filoni is already doing with the Bad Batch. Mount Tantus showed up.
Yes, pulling the parts from it that he can.
I don't see any High Republic stuff making entrances into that. I have to be honest with you. I think this might be more of an idealistic thing when it comes to the High Republic being at the forefront, because I've read the books. They're not good. They're just not good.
Well, and let me say, I'm not trying to pile on the Acolyte. You're right. It does not exist yet. So I cannot say, whether it's good or bad in terms of the quality of that show. What I can say is that were I someone in charge of Lucasfilm or in charge of marketing or content production, and you said to me, we're going to make a big show, we're going to put big money behind it, this is the one that's actually going to make it to air, where should we put this? Like in the timeline and in the area of the galaxy? Like High Republic is at the very bottom of any possible list. It's the last area of this franchise that I would take anything that I wanted to have be successful. That's not me saying whether the Acolyte is good or bad. It's me saying, from a creative direction and from a marketing stance, that's not what I would do.
Well, I fully expect it to underperform. I fully expect it to.
Wow.
But to your point, why would you take the one basically unproven director in Star Wars? First off, Leslie's completely or writer, whatever you want to call it, the showrunner. Why would you take somebody who's completely unproven, and then beyond that, take a section, a portion of Star Wars that has not been, an absolute success, something that's booming, something that you can believe in, like The Mandalorian was doing at the end of season 2. Of course, you're going to renew that for a new season.
Sure.
You would focus on something that has been largely unproven to be like, yep, that's the one we're running with. Why?
I don't know. Maybe you could do it if the franchise was exceedingly healthy and you were going to try some spinoffs, but my gosh, we're not there.
If you have some pocket change, go right ahead.
Yep. All right, let's dig in a little bit more because we're gonna find out that this is getting worse. Lindelof back again talking about the super secret movie that was supposed to feature Rey. Lindelof actually hinted at his cold feet a few days ago, explaining during an appearance at SXSW that the degree of difficulty on a Star Wars movie is extremely, 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 should we say it again, high. Adding, if it can't be great, it shouldn't exist. He also noted that when you have something that you hold in such high reverence and esteem, then perhaps it should be like going into a kitchen and realizing, maybe I shouldn't be cooking. Maybe I should just be eating. Well, that's a vote of confidence for where this thing is right now. Because apparently he provided the script, Britt Gibson provided the script that they had come up with so far, and they walked out. And so if that's how he was feeling about this before doing so, then wowza. this is this is in a really bad spot. But here's what I want to get to, X-Wing. Here's what I'm curious on your take for. I'm told this was supposed to be the big reveal, the big, it was the focal point of Star Wars Celebration to, even if we didn't get exactly what the movie was about, we were going to have the announcement. And possibly we were going to have Daisey Ridley come out on stage, and possibly this was going to be a big moment, right, for all of Star Wars. Now, I don't know how that would have been received, actually, and I have a good idea that it wouldn't have gone the way that Lucasfilm hopes. However, we're weeks away from Celebration in the United Kingdom now. It looks to me like they have nothing to talk about other than the Acolyte, which still says to me that they have nothing to talk about. X-Wing, what are they going to do? What is this convention going to be about now?
So, I mean, there's definitely a large degree of truth there, but I think the bigger problem is right now, what do they have to talk about? So obviously they've still got the skeleton crew to talk about,
Sure.
The Jude Law thing. They still got Ahsoka that they can talk about. If I had to imagine, they're still probably going to announce an Andor season 2 or a Kenobi season 2, or at least tease something like that.
But the ratings, and I've heard people say that they liked Andor, so I'm not trying to bemoan the series. But neither one of those series did what they needed to do for Disney Plus. In fact, Kenobi was supposed to go head to head with Stranger Things at a time when Disney was trying to drive up the ad subscription revenue sources, and they were trying to bolster what their streaming platform could do versus Netflix by going head to head. It was a big deal, and Kenobi just fell flat. So
that's the big problem right now, is that at this current juncture, Star Wars is kind of a stagnant pool, right? It's a very stagnant pool, and people keep saying we're reopening the pool, and everybody's looking at the pool, and they're like, I don't want to get in the pool. What they need,
right? That's called apathy, folks.
They need a massive chlorine shock, something huge. They're not going to get that with the Disney Plus show. I don't care what it is or how good it could possibly be. It's not going to come from a Disney Plus show, period. They need a theatrical
release. You think it has to be a movie?
It has to be a theatrical release. You have to create the buzz. You have to create the hype. That is I will die on that hill that Star Wars lives on the big screen. If you have a healthy theatrical release program, then you go make your extra money on Disney Plus, because that's your side gig, right?
Right. That's your filler.
Exactly.
That fills in the stuff between the movies.
Exactly. That's where you spend your time to keep people interested until the next theatrical release. Right now, they're paddling at the surface, trying to stay alive, releasing these extremely expensive Disney Plus projects to no avail for the most part, it seems like to me, because you have 2.5 million watching, the first episode of Kenobi, which is funny in and of itself because they have avoided the prequels like the plague, and then they finally put one out and a lot of people hate it. And then you got, Book of Boba Fett coming in at 1.6, and all of a sudden now your flagship Disney Plus show, Mandalorian, gets the lowest of those three.
Oh, it's bad. That's really bad.
That should be a huge red flag.
Well, look what's happening at Marvel, X-Wing. Look what's happening at Marvel. So we've, Quantumania really is the canary in the coal mine for Marvel, where everybody now knows, oh my gosh, it's not just the internet trolls who are, saying that Marvel's in trouble. It really is. And so then you have this huge, earthquake of movement over at Marvel, where everything's being delayed. Everything now is coming soon rather than having a hard date that it'll release. You've got Victoria Alonso being released. And then here is Lucasfilm, which honestly is in a worse spot, and there's no change at all. Here's what I want to ask you about, because I think what you're talking about is fascinating. I agree with you about the theatrical release being that which drives the franchise. Here's the problem. Now that this movie has lost its script writers, and yes, they say, oh, it's going to go on, and it's still got one individual working on it. Hooey with that, whatever. There's no way that movie is going to make now its very, very late 2025 release date. There's just no way.
You have 2.5 years.
That means Star Wars will not have a theatrical release for another 3 years. So how can it make it when the Disney Plus shows, in my opinion, let me just tell you what I think happened here. When we brought out The Mandalorian, people said, oh, it looks like the old Star Wars. It doesn't look like the sequel trilogy. I'll give it a small chance. And then Luke showed up. In my opinion, that's what happened. Luke showed up, and it was like this. It was like kids who had their favorite toy taken from someone else, and that whoever that was just smeared it with dog dew and said, "Now play with it." Right? Just covered it in crap and said, "Play with it." And they said, "No, this sucks. Why did you do this to my favorite toy?" And then somebody came and washed it off and said, "Oh, would you like to play with it again?" And you're like, well, maybe, but I don't really trust you. And that's what happened. It drove ratings through the roof because people finally got the Luke they wanted. Yeah. But I don't think that they're going to keep doing that. I don't think they're going to keep bringing Luke back. They're definitely not going to do a Luke Skywalker show where he's the hero. And as people realize we're going back to the sequel trilogy, I think that this is just going to completely falter. So how do they make it for 3 years or 4 years?
So I don't necessarily know that they do. They'll figure out a way. They will make it work somehow.
You think?
You know,
they haven't yet.
They will figure out some way to make it work. Either that or they're, I still, there's a part of me that wishes that they would sell it. I know that's probably not going to happen, but they're in a really tough situation because they're in a damned if you do, damned if you don't, because we don't trust them to handle legacy characters. So we get that one really nice brief moment of reprieve where all of a sudden Star Wars fans are crying on all corners of the internet. Oh my God, Luke is back. It seems like Lucasfilm finally got the stick out of their you-know-what.
And yet they hated it.
Interesting. And we're on our way back. Okay, we're in a good spot, right? Now we can kind of move forward. It seems like we're in that time frame that makes sense where we want to hear stories. It's very much what I would call the Zahn era, right? This is where Zahn this is the thriving imagination of the Star Wars fan era. But having said that, if they don't figure out a way to move away from Luke, they're going to be stuck forever in the Skywalker saga, which, to be honest with you, I think the driving force and the love for Star Wars, whether people acknowledge it or not, that is Star Wars. And not everybody's an expanded universe fan. Not everybody loves Thrawn in the way that I do or other fans do and can get involved with that like they would a Skywalker. But the bottom line is people get really upset and they say Star Wars shouldn't just be pew-pews and lightsabers. And that's a very, very kind of myopic view of what that type of Star Wars is. But it's the type of Star Wars that people want when they're watching.
It's kind of like, it's like saying Indiana Jones shouldn't be fedoras, whips, and archaeology. It's like, well, right. Then what is it?
There's a story that goes along with it, but the bottom line is everybody's favorite stuff from Mandalorian has been Order 66 scenes. It's been, when we see Luke come back, it's those amazing moments interwoven with a different story. And so again, it's like you have to get away from that stuff, but if you don't do that kind of stuff, people aren't going to enjoy it. So I don't envy them.
You got to get rid of these dinosaurs out of Jurassic Park, man. It's just it's all about dinosaurs. Yeah, what's up with this?
Yeah, don't make it, don't make a park for 40-year-olds and yet you put one prequel show out and the opening gets 2.5 million views by your subscribers. I feel like there's an extreme and fundamental misunderstanding of what Star Wars fans want, paired with a massively overconfidence in new viewership, which has been
tell me what you think about this.
Been misplaced.
So I was talking with somebody in the toy industry, and this individual said that everybody was salivating over the idea that we were going to get Luke Skywalker somehow training Baby Yoda Grogu for an extended period of time. And I don't know how that could have been written. I don't know how the Mandalorian would have done without having Baby Yoda right by his side. Maybe he had to get some new cute sidekick. Maybe Baby Groot could have hopped on over, I don't know. But they were just, they couldn't believe the potential of packaging Jedi Master Luke Skywalker with Padawan Baby Yoda. The toys that could have been made, how much kids would have absolutely loved it. And they threw it away as fast as possible.
I mean,
what do you make of that?
Right out the window. Right out the window.
What do you make of it? They had magic, and they were like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, it's almost jarring to me. You have something that you've been building 16 episodes up to. Years of content now at this point, where everything that the Mando has been doing up to this point was to get him to a Jedi, and then boom, that Jedi is Luke Skywalker. Like, oh my God, you guys did it. You pulled the rabbit square out of your prison pocket and somehow made this work to, and like I said, people are crying all over the internet. Yeah. Can we soak in that for a little bit? Like, no, immediately what comes up is
you did something, if you've got that response. They couldn't realize it. They were out there busy making fun of people. Like, they couldn't sit there and go, we haven't had that response yet. Maybe that's what we were looking for.
right. So it's there is a, like I said, this is that massive disconnect between what I think they believe Star Wars fans want or what they're trying to get with their new audience comparative to the existing audience that they seem to really just kind of I won't say ignore, but they don't put any stock in it. And that's the most frustrating part, is that the writing is on the wall. You've seen it. Luke Skywalker showed up and the internet exploded. Kenobi was listed. It was prequel era content and people were losing their minds. You got the highest, 2.5 million on that. And yet with all of those signals, all of those flags, the exponents being plugged into the equation, they still can't seem to solve for X here. They can't seem to figure out what we want. And I'm getting a little tired of yelling at the wall, and I'm starting to wonder if the creatives that are coming into Lucasfilm saying this is what they want, and Lucasfilm saying, well, we can't do that, this is what we want to do, is why we're having these constant creative differences. And people are saying, fine, I don't want to be a part of it, and they leave.
Well, it seems to me that they are very good at pulling defeat from the jaws of success. So congratulations to them on that. All right, let's take a look at one more article. This one coming to us from Collider, and I want to highlight this because you're starting to see the fissures now. You're starting to see people, even in the access and mainstream media, calling out Disney that this is not going to ride. This Mandoverse, this Filoni-verse, this Favloni universe, cinematic universe, whatever you want to call it, this thing's not going to be able to sustain Star Wars long term. And so this one is by Liam Goggin. Star Wars can't let the Filoniverse become the new Skywalker saga. The Mandalorian requires a lot more homework than it did before. When The Mandalorian first debuted on Disney Plus at the end of 2019, it was a welcome breath of fresh air when the Star Wars saga really needed it. They probably won't tell why. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker had soiled the reputation of the theatrical films by ditching the interesting direction that Rian Johnson set up in the last. I'm sorry. Oh, the last one we read was by Sam, and we like Sam. Liam, you're well-intentioned, but God bless your soul. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, that Last Jedi, it really did a good thing for the franchise. Anyway, balkanization of the galaxy. Anyway, needlessly tying the franchise back to the Skywalkers. We don't need to talk about them.
Yeah, that's needless.
I can't keep going. We're done. I'm not reading that. And that's a wrap. Anyway, if those people, if Liam, who clearly has no idea whatsoever about Star Wars or what's going on in the market or where the breaking began, if even little Liam over there on Collider has figured out that there's problems with the Mandoverse, then are we already reaching fatigue with the Disney Plus shows, including The Mandalorian?
I mean, we reached far beyond fatigue and landed at apathy. I would say at Book of Boba Fett,
the worst place to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my question to you. So you're a huge Star Wars fan. You cover Star Wars all the time. I think the Book of Boba Fett was just devastating to the franchise because it took, yet again, a legacy character that everybody held to be just awesome. And it watered that character down into being just the most pathetic creature. And you even had the lead actor coming out and saying, this is not what I would have done, by the way, everybody. I argued, while we're getting episodes coming out, he's out there saying, not what I would have done. And you've got the rainbow-colored Vespas, rolling through like we're watching Luca in the desert. So how bad was the Book of Boba Fett for this? Were we at a redemption point there where if it had been good, this could have been saved? So
I think what I would touch on is that, there's an argument made by a lot of Star Wars fans that Star Wars can't always be badass. I've heard, Sam has said that before, Sam Worthington. The argument is that there has to be story included, right? We have to have some kind of character progression. But this kind of goes The only analogy that I can really kind of put to this that makes sense is a lot of chefs nowadays that will take something like a tomato, they'll boil it down,
You're making
and
the
then they
exact
do
same point I was going to make. This is great.
molecular gastronomy, and they deconstruct it into something else, and then they give you it back, and they're like, check this out. And it's like, that's a whole lot of nothing for no reason. Why did we do any of this?
Right.
The bottom line is sometimes we don't need all that extra. Just make a badass Book of Boba Fett show. That's all you have to do. So this was massively detrimental. Yes. I wouldn't say that it affects the original trilogy in a massively bad way or anything like that.
But you would say Kenobi does.
So the problem with Kenobi is that it affects both, because now, so, you know, obviously the Book of Boba Fett is going to be mostly for your OT guys who were like, man, oh my God, I love Boba Fett. He's been the mic, you know, this is the mysterious character.
Get the vanilla paste of Boba Fett. You're going to love it.
We're just, you know, everybody wanted to see him be a badass. We want to see Slave One blowing stuff up. We want to see
No. You wanted to watch him team up with a group of metrosexual Vespa drivers.
Yeah, I was super excited about the Portland biker gang. Yeah, that's what I wanted to see. You know, we've been waiting 40 years. That's what I want to see, is a Portland freaking Vespa.
I gotta see a tiny 14-year-old girl show up Boba Fett. That's gonna really get me going.
Yeah, no, not a thing. So yeah, that was a real problem. That was just more of a detriment to Disney and showing that they have no idea what they're doing. The problem with Kenobi for me personally was I'm of the age group where I'm a prequel baby. So I loved the original trilogy before I watched the prequel trilogy, put them both together. Like, I'm the happiest Star Wars fan in the world because I'm happy with both. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I'm very happy with both. The problem with Kenobi was that now you have a legitimate legacy character that spans to the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, and you messed both up. You had continuity breaking issues and canon breaking issues on both sides. And so you pissed everybody off. So we've gone from kind of a lackadaisical, like, oh God, okay, maybe Star Wars fatigue is real. And then you go to Kenobi and you have a poorly shot, poorly produced, the visual effects in that, I will die on the hill, are some of the worst that we've ever seen out of Star Wars. Where does that leave you?
Nobody wanted to stick around for Andor. Right, everybody exited that before Andor even started. Then, so nobody cares about that.
Because Andor, you know, it's not for me personally. I thought it was a well-written show. I thought it was a good show. It's just not for me personally, because Star Wars should be campy. It's supposed to be fun and campy and yada yada yada. And
it rides that line. There are moments of seriousness, but it's also the campy adventures.
Yeah. So
okay, so last thing I'm curious about. Well, I've got you here on the show.
Because I will rant. You have to just stop me. Just remember to stop me, because I'll go.
No. This is a great conversation. I think the audience is loving it. So my question to you is the Gina Carano thing. It's been talked about to death, but now we've got this new spin coming out where they've selected a new woman who is muscular, and she comes in for the side quest that seems, according to Star Wars experts, to point to the sequel trilogy and them trying to explain it now and make it be palatable. That'll never happen. But what do you make of this idea that you can just replace Gina Carano with a new muscular female character? It's what I guess that's being spun by some of the Access Media articles out there, that she's the new one.
Yeah, so this is one of those ones where it's tough. I'm still one of the people that's still pissed about Gina getting the boot.
Well, sure. Well, she was treated horribly.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but I really freaking liked Cara Dune.
It's okay.
Gina.
She's been recruited by special forces off screen. Don't worry.
Yeah. So, I like Gina. I loved the character of Cara Dune. When it comes to her replacing Cara Dune or anything like that, that's one, we'll see what happens. I think it's a little early yet to say that these two things are really connected, or that she's the new Cara Dune and yada, yada, yada. And let's not forget that she was the comms officer on Gideon's ship way back through Mandalorian. We're talking like all the way back. As soon as we saw his light cruiser, she's been the comms officer there the whole time. So it's not like it's a new character that they just, stuck a syringe in and they're like, hey, here's your daily dose of,
strong woman,
strong butch lady. Yeah, that's not what this is. So this episode I feel like was a really, really, it was a bad step. It was a step in the wrong direction. I think a lot is going to be told, today with the new episode of Mando, and we'll see what happens.
X-Wing prediction time. How long is it going to take before we actually now get the kind of change we're beginning to see at Marvel come to Lucasfilm and to Star Wars? How long until we get the course correction?
3 weeks after Indiana Jones.
Ooh, that is very specific.
Mm-hmm. 2 to 3 weeks after Indiana Jones.
Wow. Well, I was going to say, I've heard October, but that's way more specific than I had. So me and you are going to talk after this and see what you know. Ladies and gentlemen, WDW Pro is going to go source hunting now. Those anonymous sources may be named X-Wing in the future if he's got the goods on this one. So, well, we'll end there because that is quite the prediction. X-Wing, please tell us, where can people find you on this great, big, beautiful web out there?
So the channel is X-Wing, just as you can see in the corner right there.
Got it.
Yeah, I talk a bunch of Star Wars. I do a lot of live streaming. I'm kind of an unconventional YouTuber. I like talking to people more than anything. So that's what you'll get. Yeah, I just talk about Star Wars. We'll see how that looks over the next 2 years.
Let's hope something good happens. Otherwise, it gets to be a real lonely place. But yeah. X-Wing, it's your first time on the channel. I'm sure that we'll be doing this again in the future. At least I hope that will happen. You've been a fantastic guest. I really appreciate it. I hope people will go to your channel, subscribe if they want more content like this, and I think they'll have a really, really good time. Folks, if you like content like what you've just seen, please click the like button, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. When you do, you can stick it to those algorithms. And don't forget that we covet your comments. This is not just a dialogue between two people, but this is a dialogue with all of you. Share your thoughts. We often respond. We care about what you think. You are the electricity that drives all of this. Don't forget also, we are coming up on that 10,000 subscriber mark. When that happens, memberships open up and the Pro Show starts Thursday. That's tomorrow, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and every Thursday thereafter. You do not want to miss that show. Go ahead and hop over there and click the like on it as well, and get ready. We'll debut it real soon. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.